talking about the second person today, I feel a little bit like Mark Antony coming to bury the second person rather than praising it. It is, after all, a persona that is both popular and deemed worthy of death. My friend Ehud Havizelat, in a funny tongue-in-cheek column in the New York Times, explains why one should not write in the second person, ever. And at least one rather famous editor has been quoted as saying, "I have pet peeves. For instance, second-person stories. I generally don't like them." The dislike of second person has its roots, I think, in several sources. First, there was the backlash against its semi-ubiquity following the publication of two books right on top of each other. Jay McInerney's novel, Bright Lights, Big City, in 1984, and Lori Moore's collection of stories, Self-Help, in 1985. Two cultural beacons, both written in the second person. In Moore's case, 6 of the 9 stories are in second person. And their popularity called both a great deal of attention to the voice in which they were written and spawned a wave of imitation, not unlike the wave of Raymond Carver and Mary Robeson imitators, all writing stripped-down Kmart realism stories and striving for a similarly bleak majesty. I know, as a student of Carver's, I was trying to do it myself quite badly. This backlash, like most backlashes, aimed too broadly. Rather than being focused on the bad execution of some fiction, it took aim at the very idea of writing in the second person. It was a trick, a gimmick. It calls too much attention to itself. It's grating, it's clumsy, it's a flash in the pan, a contrivance du jour, a fashionably postmodern game, the leisure suit, ask your parents, of narratorial devices not worthy of serious consideration. In trying to address these charges, first let's acknowledge that this is nothing new as a form. If you think second person is only a postmodern phenomenon, consider that Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a story, The Haunted Mind, which begins, it's on your handouts, "What a singular moment is the first one, when you have hardly begun to recollect yourself, after starting from midnight slumber. By unclosing your eyes so suddenly, you seem to have surprised the personages of your dream in full convocation round your bed, and catch one broad glance at them before they can flit into obscurity." And long, long before that, direct address, at least in the form of invocations to the muse, was standard in epic poetry. Whether it's Homer's The Iliad, "Sing, O goddess, the anger of Peleus' son Achilles," or the Odyssey, "Tell me, O muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide after he had sacked the famous town of Troy. Tell me, too, about all these things, O daughter of Jove, from whatsoever source you may know them." Or Milton's "Sing, heavenly muse," or Dante's various addresses to God in the Paradiso, such as his calling out, "O light supreme, make thou my tongue so eloquent it may, of all thy glory to speak a single clue." The poets speak directly to the muse or a higher power as though she were there, and requests, commands that the muse speak through them, inspiring them in the telling of their tale. Essentially, they are asking the muse, "Please help me out here, and for doing that, you'll demonstrate through me how great you are." When epic narrative moved over into prose and into print, the author continues to make nods toward the now faceless readers, who are the audience. But one could argue that such direct address was meant to be taken in momentarily, "Yes, I know you're out there," and then largely put aside as the narrative proceeds in a more standard third or first person. I think that would be a mistake. The use of second person, even cursorily, is a rhetorical desire for connection. Whether the linkage is for the speaker with the source of inspiration and art, or God, as it was more commonly used in more ancient times, or for the speaker and the audience, as it has been used more recently. More importantly, direct address, such as I've begun with, is merely one point on a spectrum, from the occasional and the incidental, and running through to the author positing the reader as the narrative's central character and consciousness, so that the narration seems to emanate from inside the reader's own head as the action is occurring. I'd like to explore a little bit of that spectrum, and more importantly, talk a little about how and why it might be effective as a strategy, and I'm hoping really with this to just begin a conversation.